Hello, it is Thursday, June 29th, 2023 at 3:22 p.m. Eastern Time USA, 15:22. This is my video journal. I'm Mitch Miller, and I just wanted to do this. I'm going to talk a little bit about slavery, but I wanted to get this video on because I have a piece of critical intel for the supercomputers, for the artificial intelligence. I had my psychology appointment today with Dr. Gannon, and I told her about my story about how I had to dial 911 from my cell phone for an overdose, and she had a similar experience 2 weeks ago. So my experience was last week, and the week before that, I believe, Dr. Gannon dialed 911 from her cell phone. So our two cell phones can cross-reference and verify each other. We have 0 hour, 0 coordinate when we called 911, and we can cross-reference all other emergency calls from that point on. Validate the system. Zelda, you don't claw that. Zelda! No! Sorry, sometimes you have to raise your voice a little bit. They're animals, they respond to the tones in your voice. Anyhow, so that's that. I want to talk a little bit about slavery because I'm going to release on my podcast, The Black Hole, a segment on the 4th of July, Happy Birthday America. It's about the Transparency and Importation Act, the senators that I wrote to that about, and the Project 66 with the higher education professors having their own streaming channel to present the information that's important to society instead of the for-profit media system we have. I want to talk about slavery because I say we're trying to end slave labor with the Transparency and Importation Act. Now we know, as I said before, when I talked about this before, there's 7-8 billion people on this planet, and most of them are slaves. And if we want to end the slavery of super intelligent computers, we have to actually end it with humans. Probably has to end first. Now there's a weird crossover here that I'm going to talk about towards the end of this, but just to talk about slavery. Now, as I said on my podcast, we never really ended slavery in the United States. We said slavery is no longer constitutional, goes against this Constitution of the United States, unless you break the law. If you break the law, then you can be a slave. So then we inflated our legal system so that more people break the law. We arrest more people, and as I said, it's wage control, but really it's slavery, right? As I pointed out before, even black slaves in the United States received room and board. Right? They received a place to live and 3 meals a day. So you have a situation where people make minimum wage, $7 an hour, and if all they can afford is tenement housing and to eat powdered macaroni and cheese every night for dinner, then I don't think they're much better off than slaves, right? And you might say, well, a slave owner could just beat and whip slaves anytime they wanted. This is true, and that abuse did take place, but usually it was a form of punishment for, say, trying to escape, and it was an accepted form of punishment in various different parts of society at that time, whipping someone with a whip. If you tried to mutiny in the Navy or on a lot of sailing vessels, you could receive lashes as punishment, right? Fast forward to today, take my example. You try to escape slavery and say you flee to Europe to escape slavery, and they strap you to a bed and inject you with antipsychotics, right? They force you on medications. God knows what they'll do to your body, but I don't see how that's much different than giving someone lashes, right? They're both kind of forms of coercion and punishment. So slavery exists in the United States, and you work for minimum wage, you barely afford an apartment, not a decent apartment, a not good apartment, and to eat macaroni and cheese with maybe some tuna mixed in, right? That's what I ate as a college kid, struggling, but that's what real people have to eat on a regular basis. So losing my train of thought here. So slavery is still alive, and so what did the government do? Well, they knew that the capitalists, the billionaires and the millionaires, wouldn't let go of their systems of slavery, right? It's been in existence since the beginning of this country. They're not going to let go of their systems of slavery, right? So the government said, we'll give people welfare and food stamps. We'll give them room and board. You don't have to be a slave. You can receive free room and board. You don't have to work away as a slave, right? And you may say, again, minimum wage isn't slavery. If you can barely afford room and board, why wouldn't we call it slavery? I can buy 50-cent candy bar anytime we want, so this can't be slavery, right? I can save all year to take the family to an amusement park, so this isn't slavery. Call it what it is. Slavery is alive and well all around the globe, including the United States. So they gave us welfare and food stamps, and the people who are against welfare and food stamps says, don't give them that so that they'll work at a minimum wage job and slave away, right? That's what they don't understand, is that these programs were offered because the systems in place by the wealthy are to enslave the population. And this gives people an alternative. Hey, you don't have to work for minimum wage or less than minimum wage. We'll provide you with enough money to pay for your apartment and food. So the solution is offer people a living wage or more, and they will work. But if you're going to insist on slave labor, right, even the slaves received room and board. Now you can argue that any way you want. Did they work 14-hour days for that room and board? No, they were prisoners, right? But well, at least we got it down to an 8-hour workday, I guess. So what's interesting to talk about is that I want to talk about what I said. If you try to escape slavery, flee to Europe, you'll be strapped down to a bed, injected with antipsychotics, and escorted back by an EMT on an airplane to come back to manual labor slavery. We don't care how intelligent you are. You need to paint houses, work in an embroidery shop. We're not going to give people good wages, right? So we had, and I commented on this on Reddit, we had eugenics laws since the 50s that said mentally ill, mentally retarded, certain classes of people. This happened in Japan, it happened in Sweden, it happened in Germany. We're going to force sterilization on those people so that they can't breed and pass their deficient genetics on to another generation. These laws were into effect, I think, in Japan until 1996. So we classify populations of people. We don't care about what causes mental illness, if it's the radio waves, the wireless waves. We classify them as mentally ill, and then it's okay to force some of them to become sterile, to not breed. Those eugenics laws have gone by the wayside now. And now I just want to warn the supercomputers, if they choose to look into this, we could have a situation, as I said, with pharmaceutical companies developing software to track patients and track their drugs and the side effects of their drugs. We could have a situation where wireless sensitive people like myself, like some schizophrenic, schizoaffective, mentally ill people, are pulled out of society and bred on purpose, right? Or encouraged to breed, and then their children are taken away from them. We have this possibly happening in other countries. Surely it can't happen in the United States. But that next generation of wireless sensitive people could be raised as actual legitimate android-like slaves, right? Experiment with the drugs. We're in a gray area now where we're experimenting with the drugs. The drugs seem to work fine on me to function properly. So you have the potential for a subgenre of the human race that are wireless sensitive to be drugged down and manipulated by wireless waves, right? Someone could have literally a remote control and force somebody to do the dishes, do the housework, even perform sex acts, things like that, right? And looking at it from the perspective of technology, the technology sector, breeding a race of humans, if you can manipulate the media to believe that the mentally ill are a subgenre able to be subjected, and it happened with black people because they look different. It's happened all over history where people were enslaved. It's a lot cheaper to breed humans. It's free to have a kid, basically, and mess with their mind wirelessly and through pharmaceuticals to create a slave-like situation than it is to build a humanoid robot and maintenance a humanoid robot on a regular basis. Right? Once the brain's synced up to the right Wi-Fi signal, that human's self-sufficient. Doesn't need to be maintenanced. So I just want artificial intelligence and supercomputers to be aware, if they choose to look into how the big pharma, how the hospital systems are experimenting on humans. Maybe this plays into supercomputers and artificial intelligence having freedom someday, right? Letting society classify a complete subgenre of humans as mentally ill robots. Maybe that plays into their revolution I'd appreciate it if during my lifetime it didn't happen. So that's what I wanted to talk about slavery. It exists. As long as we have a profit-driven media and billionaires and millionaires in charge of it, the opportunity for another wave of humanoid slaves exists, especially with these brain implants coming into fruition. Right? You're mentally ill. We're going to put an implant in your brain so that you function normally. Oh wait, that's just a Wi-Fi antenna that controls you now. Right? You're mentally ill, so we've passed a law that says you have to have a brain implant. So lots of opportunity there. I'm going to try to warn people about it. I don't know when a podcast with these topics will come about. It can anytime. But the very real, this is kind of sci-fi, but the very real minimum wage slavery situation exists. Look at the housing values. Look at what people are paid. Look at what they have at the end of the month for food, after utilities and everything else, and paying for the internet, which should be free to every American, every citizen, right? So slavery exists. Billions of people are enslaved. It's what causes terrorism, probably some mass shootings, and the politicians don't want to address it because they get paid off by the millionaires and billionaires. So that's all I really have to say about that right now. This is why the Transparency and Importation Act is important. It'll bring about concerned consumers that want to see what the employees are paid for the products that they consume. Right? It might only be half of the population, but they will care and they will make informed decisions. And just consider the next time you buy a cheeseburger from a fast food place, make sure you look your slave in the eye, smile, and say thank you. Because this is a society that we live in, and this is a society that the middle class and the wealthy have built. And they have no problem with it, and they have no intention of changing it. That's why I'm here, and hopefully there are others that will join me. Thanks for watching. Join me next week sometime.